Hi guys, Kevin here. What I'm going to do in this video is show you how to upgrade your memory on your iMac, and I want to just show you a test because apparently for this iMac I can only put 16 gigabytes in it, but that's something I want to test. I'll quickly explain my situation first before I talk about that, but what I want to do is really in this video just talk about upgrading the RAM, but I want to show you my situation. If you look around you can see that I've got a lot of equipment around. Primarily I'm a blogger, I'm an internet marketer. I make money online. I'm starting to move into video. I really enjoy doing videos and things like that. And I work between a Windows laptop and an Apple iMac. This is a late 2009 edition that I bought in 2010, so it's actually about 6.5 years old now, but it still works great. The funny thing is both of these laptops have the same amount of RAM. They've both got an i5 processor and they've both got 8 gigabytes of RAM on it. Both of them originally came with 4 gigabytes as well. At one point this had two gigabytes. I replaced it with two 4 gigabyte modules, and what I did was I took out the two gigabyte sticks and I put them into the iMac. So this iMac has got 4 slots in. It originally came with two gigabytes and now it's got 4. 2 that came with the Mac and 2 that were actually taken out of this one, out of the Lenovo laptop. So that's been running well. Originally when I was at 4 gigabyte it was bottlenecking all the time. Upgraded it to 8 gigabyte and the RAM, is less of an issue. 90% of the time it's fine. I say 90% of the time. A lot of people say that the best upgrade to make on your iMac is to replace the hard drive that I've got in it. It's a 1 terabyte hard drive and I believe it's 5400 RPM. Could be 7200, I think it's only 5400 though. And the best performance boost that you should get is from replacing the hard drive with an SSD drive. Or an SSD, because D is the drive. That's not something I've done, because the reason I've not done that is because day-to-day operations I'm happy with the speed of this. It could be quicker, it's an older computer, but I'm generally happy with it. The big problem is the bottleneck, and it's with the memory. Now as I said, 90% of the time it's fine, but when it hits that 10% of the time and the RAM is an issue, then that's when problems occur, and it really, it's been something I've needed to address for a long time, because it really kind of holds me back. As a blogger, you don't actually need a lot to operate. You can get away with only, doing everything in Chrome and just using online image editing applications, but it is limiting doing that. Like I've got here, nothing's opened. There's no applications open. In fact, that's a lie, I've got Photoshop open there. With nothing open, this is using 2.7 gig, and the Mac is using, where is it now? It's using about 3.5. And that's the thing, a lot of people say that the Macs are more efficient, but I've actually found that when I've got the same amount of applications open, the Mac really struggles. I don't know, maybe Apple manages it a little bit differently from Windows. For whatever reason, I don't have the same bottlenecking problems as I do in the Lenovo laptop, and they've got the exact same processors and exact same amount of RAM, so I'm not sure why that's being caused. But the thing is, you wouldn't think you would need a lot of RAM, but sometimes, when I'm blogging, I'll have, could be 15, 20 tabs open, because you're editing lots of things in the article. You've got lots of tabs open for research because you're linking to them. You've got Photoshop open because you're editing images. You might have Word open because you're doing an invoice for someone. And because I do YouTube videos, as you can see here, or maybe you can't see, because I do YouTube videos, I might have something like a Adobe Premiere Pro on, or ScreenFlow, and these things use a huge amount of RAM. And the problem is, when you reach that high limit of RAM, what happens is that the computer just starts freezing up. It really, and it gets to the point where it'll come up with an hourglass, and it can do that for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, and it's so frustrating. So it's a bit silly that I've not did this before, but what I'll quickly do is I'll show you what I'm going to do in this video. So, bring you down. Here I have the RAM. Crucial, and this is 2 8 gigabyte sticks, right? And you can see the current score through NovaBench. This is a free app you can download for the iMac. 8,192 megabytes, a score of 157, and RAM speed of 4,234, and you can see here as well, down here actually, sorry, Physical memory 8 gigabytes, 3.5 being used just now. There's no applications open, that's why. Get you back up here. So the reason I'm doing this big long intro is because the iMac is supposed to only run with 16 gigabytes. It's supposed to have a maximum of 4 gigabytes. However, there's lots of articles saying that these sticks will work. So if you're there and you've got a similar iMac to me from the same generation, I'm not sure about the Core 2 Duos, but the i5 processor should be able to handle these 8 gigabyte sticks. So here's what I want to do. It's currently got 4 2 gigabyte sticks in it. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put in the 2 8 gigabyte sticks, so it's got 16 gigabytes. Then what I might do is try and add another 2 sticks in it, so I've got 20 gigabytes. I just want to test to see if it'll work. So let's get to it. So apparently you're supposed to put this on a sheet or something, but I'm just kind of leaning my computer like this just now. You can see at the bottom of the iMac, this is a late 2009 model. You can see that this is the panel at the bottom for memory, and all you need is cross-point screwdriver. This one is, let me see here, get in focus, there we go, 2 times 100 millimeters. So I'm going to struggle to do this with one hand, so I'll quickly flip the camera up and you can see. So this doesn't take long. It's very quick to do this. There we go, that's it. That is the bottom panel. 2 seconds to get out. You can see it's very dusty. So what I need to do is take these out. And you see there's a little slip here to do that. So that helps me pull it out. So you can see I've got 4 2 gigabytes. And what I'm going to do is get that in shot. Just quickly check which one's which. I want to keep the iMac memory in later. So I've got Samsung memory and RAM Axle. That's what I've got already. So what I'm going to do initially is actually take out all the memory. And then just put the 2 8 gigabytes in, just to check that it's working okay. Now I don't know if you saw what I did there. There's these little black kind of bits of, it's kind of like cellophane, and you just kind of pop these up and this pops the RAM up. So it's very easy to do. And we've got the crucial RAM. So now RAM, I'm not sure if it matters whether I put the RAM here and here or just both in one, but I believe if I remember right it's 1 in each. Could be 100% wrong on that, so double check that. Right. I believe this is right. So there's one, and then once you put it in, just tuck that sleeve back in. And it's the same on the other side. You can see from the pins which way it goes in, because it goes like 1/3 and then 2/3. So, and that's it. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to put this back on, and then I'll see if it's working. Well guys, it's been a success. I'll just quickly show you some things here. Now you can see here, this is the original specs of my iMac. 4 gigabytes, 2 gigabytes. I support up to 16 gigabytes. Now apparently the maximum was you could put in 4 gigabytes, but thankfully it has worked with 8 gigabyte slots, 8 gigabyte sticks. Now the other thing I wanted to check here, I think it's important to note. Now I noted that I wasn't sure of the way that it worked with the bank slots, but you can see here where it's got the best way to do it is you put bank 0, bank 1, bank 0, bank 1. So it's like the 2 4s and then the 2 8s. Now that's if you're mixing the memory. And you can see that it's the bank 0 and bank 1 are like one side, and then bank 0 and bank 1 are the other side, 8 gigabytes. Now, if you look up here, I've got in the, you can see I've got the same thing. I've got the 8 gigabytes put together. So I've did that correctly. You can see here all the Nova Bench score, it's showing 16 gigabytes. And if I go back and just show you the specs, another thing I should have noted there. Now the speed was 1066 megahertz. And you can see many places here that it's now up to 1333 megahertz. The score is now 198. I'm showing 16,384 megabyte, and the RAM speed is 4,209. Again, it's showing 16 gigabytes up there, and on activity monitor, we've got 16 gigabytes again. So now I've added the extra 4 gigabytes. I've got 2 slots left here. I put 2 of these in. So I'm now up to 20 gigabytes. So I'll quickly show you the stats for that, the specifications and that for that, and then I'll explain what's happening. So I'll quickly go down. You can see up here, I've got 20 gigabytes. 20 gigabytes here, DDR3 1067 megahertz. That's what I want to talk about. Now the score here, I've got 20,480 megabytes, so it's 20 gigabytes of RAM. Score has jumped up to 212, and the RAM speed is 4,227 megabytes. Now again, the DDR speed has dropped from 1333 to 1067. You can see that there. You can see that up in, you can check this when you go to About Mac. 20 gig is shown down the bottom, and when you actually check the memory position, you can see the banks, you've got 8 gig, 8 gig, and then 2 gig, 2 gig. And all the speeds are set at 1067. So, put these over here, and then I'll explain why this is. Just put you a bit. Right, so here's what happened. When you've got RAM on in a computer, in a laptop, then what happens is if you've got different speeds of RAM, then what happens is the computer will use the lowest speed. So what I've got in this computer now is I've got 2 modules at 1333, and I've got 2 modules at 1066, is it? 1067, it's rounding up to 1067. So I've got some that are 2 modules that are faster than the other. Now, in theory, if you've got a computer, it would probably be better for me to have 16 gigabytes at the faster RAM than it would be to have 20 gigabytes at the lower RAM. Like, surely it's better to have 16 gigabytes of RAM at 1333 megahertz than it is to have 20 gigabytes of RAM where it's 1067. I would think that would be better for me, because, you know, it's going to be rare that I reach the 16 gigabytes limit, because, you know, most of the time I think I'll be around the 12 gigabytes mark when I'm working, so I won't need the additional 4 gigabytes most of the time, I think. So it would lead me towards just keeping the 16 gigabytes in, and if I'm ever upgrading, I could always opt to buy another 16 gigabytes of RAM. However, that is not worth doing, and the reason for that is because the front side bus of this iMac is 1067 megahertz. So even though it will show 1333 megahertz when you put both of those slots in, it will show that, you'll never get it. So it's kind of pointless, you know. I've got this faster RAM, but it can be utilised because, you know, the front side bus on the motherboard doesn't allow it. So you can only get 1067. And I've wrote down the scores just to remind you what it was. When I had 8 gigabytes at 4 times 2 gigabyte slots, the score was 157 on Nova Bench, and I got 4,234 megabytes per second. When I upgraded to 2 8 gigabyte slots, the score jumped to 198, and notice the write speed dropped to, is it the write speed they call it? The RAM speed, sorry, I'm getting mixed up there. The RAM speed is 4,209. When I added the 4 gigabyte additional 2 gigabyte slots, It dropped the megahertz from 1333 to 1067, but the score went up to 212 and the maximum RAM speed went up to 4227, or the RAM speed. I think this score goes up and down, so I'm not sure how reliable it is, but it is telling that when I used the 16 gigabytes, the score was actually less. So in this situation, 20 gigabyte is better than 16. But if you're in a situation yourself and you're going to upgrade the RAM in your computer, if you've got two different modules or two different types of modules, it could be one module's fast, one's slow, or two modules are fast and two are slow, then your computer is going to use whatever the slower speed is. You just can't get around that. But you always have to look at the front side bus, and anything else is going to limit it. So bear that into mind. Normally I would say that, if you're in a situation you don't want to apply lower speed RAM because it's going to lower the overall speed of your maximum RAM, the speed of your RAM. But in this situation, I think because of it's limited anyway, I'm as well just using the 20 gigabytes of RAM. One thing I will say about all of this is, if you're going to do this, firstly, I would check whether you actually need RAM. A lot of people I've seen online, and they're like, I'm going to add more RAM, I'm going to add more RAM. And a lot of people don't need it. If your computer starts bottlenecking because you've got lots of applications open, then you probably do need RAM. You can check it on your activity monitor on iMacs and MacBooks, etc. And on Windows, you can check it through the task manager. But generally speaking, if you've not got enough RAM, you should see bottlenecking. You should see your computer freezing. There are other things that can cause freezes, of course, like you need to check your CPU and things like that as well. And again, another performance jump that you need to consider is replacing the hard drive with an SSD. That's something I might consider next, because the RAM situation seems to be under control. I don't foresee me getting bottlenecks anymore, but I think we'll see a better performance boost, and my computer will be faster if I upgraded to an SSD. Whether I'll do that, I'm not sure, because there comes a point where it's a little bit false economy, because you can use that money and invest it into your next computer. So it comes a point where it's like spending huge amounts of money in a 20-year-old car. There comes a point where as well investing it in a new car, and it's the same with computers. But yeah, I would do that. And if you are going to do RAM, upgrade your RAM, do some research about it and check everything you can, really. The thing is that when you buy RAM in a computer, manufacturers will tell you the maximum amount of RAM that you can have. For this Lenovo laptop, it was 8 gigabytes. However, lots of people have placed 16 gigabytes in it. Same with this iMac. The maximum was apparently 4 times 4 gigabytes. So you shouldn't have an 8 gigabyte stick, and you shouldn't have more than 16 gigabytes. And as you can see here, I've got two 8 gigabyte sticks, and I've got 20 gigabytes in total. And apparently there's lots of people that have put 32 gigabytes in. So yes, please do check the manufacturer's specifications, but you should also do some research, because years later people find that you can actually go beyond what they said that you could do. So I would recommend that. Again, go back. If you don't need RAM, don't buy it. It really is pointless if you aren't going to use it. If you're not using applications that use a lot of RAM. And I mean, I imagine some people will try and justify them spending money on RAM anyway, just by, I've opened lots of applications and I can't game anymore. And you feel like saying, well, close your applications, close Word down, close Chrome down when you're playing your game. It'll save yourself money. But it's really up to you. Obviously, it's your decision. But if you are going to, I don't see that RAM is something you need to upgrade. You shouldn't really max it out if you aren't going to use it. I'm going to see how I'm going to go on with this. I could possibly spend another £40-50 to buy another 2 8 gigabyte sticks for about £50, and I could upgrade this to 32 gigabytes. Now, is it worth me doing that? I'm not sure. I could say no at this point, or I could say yes, and then it's maxed out. But the reality is, what I need to do now is use this computer for another month or so, check the performance, check how much RAM I'm using, and see if there's any point where the RAM is bottlenecking or it's causing any problems. I don't foresee there being a problem, but I will keep an eye on it, and I do know now that I can add an extra 12 gigabytes of RAM to make it up to 32 gigabytes if I need be. I'm trying to think what else to say, but the process of upgrading RAM isn't difficult. It's one of the easiest upgrades you can ever do on a computer, by far. You know, like on a laptop, it's normally down at the bottom here. This is what it is here. Unscrew it, put the RAM in, boot up. That's it. It really is that simple. You can run into problems though, you know, with the BIOS and things like that. But most of the time, you know, as long as you've cleared the power and things like that, the laptop, sometimes you need to kind of drain the battery. And there's all these other problems that can arise some of the time, but most of the time it doesn't. But it is one of the easiest upgrades you can do for a computer, and it's also one of the cheapest things you can upgrade. And you do get a big performance boost if you're running on a little RAM. And the reason I say that is because whenever you buy a laptop, whenever you buy a computer, it's very rare that they'll give you the maximum amount of RAM. You know, most of the time, for example, on a laptop, if it can handle 16 gig, they'll ship it with 8. If it can handle 8, they'll ship it with 4. And it's just a way for them to save money. There are models where it, you know, the RAM is maxed out, but most of the time, it actually works out cheaper just to buy the lower model and then upgrade the RAM yourself. Hope you found this tutorial useful, and if anything, as long as you've just taken away that the process of upgrading RAM is easy, that you can do more than what they tell you. That's what I would say. You can upgrade your computer more than what they say, and just test everything. Do lots of research and you'll be fine. I'm waffling on now, so I'll leave it at that. But I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you've got any questions about any of this, please do ask a question below and I'll do my best to answer them. And do your research. You'll be fine. You won't run into any problems because there's so many other people with the same computer as you out there. You know, it's been asked before, many times before, so you should be okay. If you've enjoyed the video, please do consider liking, sharing or subscribing. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.